due to technical difficulties, this program is joined in progress.
But it was an ex-Army unit.
Geez, I wonder what it cost to, if they kept it in service, I would imagine that it's not too bad to keep an engine that's running up and running.
Mm-hmm.
But once they've been decommissioned and sitting around for years, like I think every playground, I grew up in Cleveland, and it seemed like every playground had a railroad, had an engine car sitting on the dang playground. For whatever reason, they would park them there, and the kids would, climb on them and jump all over them, fall off, break their arms and legs. And but I don't know what they did to decommission them, but besides, bolt everything down that could be opened up.
Well, that's true. That's what they did, and some of them, lucky enough, after all the kids had crawled over them, they get taken out of the park. And people think, oh, it's a hazard and such, and it was clean when it was put in. And then some of the engines that have been put on display have been pulled off, and they run. Fort Wayne Historical Society in Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
They took a locomotive that was on display, pulled it out, and it was a bunch of enthusiasts. They've never rebuilt the steam locomotive before. A couple of them had some experience. In fact, one of the members was a locomotive engineer on the nickel plate. And I could talk about him later. And
I don't want to get you off track here, but I thought I'd share that story.
No, they took this locomotive. It's locomotive number 765, and she's being taken up to a rail line in Ohio, and they're going to be running there all summer long.
Now, how do they transport that? I mean, this is an engine that weighs,
we're
tons.
Well, no, they make arrangements with the railroad and take the locomotive to where they're going.
Do they got to put it on a flat car or?
No. They do have a crew running with it, so this way they can check the oil, make sure there's no hot box or anything.
Oh, so it's actually functional at this point.
Yeah.
And they're just taking it up to do the fine tuning and the exterior.
Oh, they're going to say, we got an engine that works. Here, we'll bring it up to you.
Right. Well, I would imagine that to make one of those today, I can't imagine what it would cost, but it would probably be millions of dollars to make a steam engine.
Well, it depends upon how big it is. Now, there was a gentleman named Dave Clokey, and he built 2 locomotives. Actually, three locomotives. And he got his certification to do steam boilers as a welder. And the engine was called the Leviathan. And they used it. He used it. He also built the replica of the president's funeral car, Abraham Lincoln's funeral car, and was traveling around with it. And I was one of the ground crew.
Nice.
And yeah, it was my baby to dress it up after we got there, and then take it down when we were leaving. And it was just, it's fun. And the locomotives are, the 2 locomotives are actually, 2 of them are actually in Pennsylvania, Elizabethtown. It's near Lancaster. And They run on trackage out of New Freedom and giving people rides and such. And they're going to be expanding their track.
I recently took a trip, family. We went to visit my wife's sister, and she lives on the. Whoop, gotta let the train through here. She lives on the border of West Virginia and Virginia, on the western side of Virginia, which is pretty much a straight shot down from Charleston, West Virginia. And, you know, there was trains, railroad tracks, train lines operating everywhere. You know, when I was checking out things to do, they had some tourist trains that run that Appalachian, some of the mountains there. In fact, the New River Gorge, I think, in that area, if you're familiar with that, that's kind of right between Charleston and Bluefield, Princeton, West Virginia. And of course, they built tracks along that New River to haul the coal out back in the old days. I don't know how far back that goes, but they're recovering some of the equipment. I don't know, or maybe bringing in new equipment, and they're trying to take advantage of the rail lines that are there and make it a tourist attraction. I think, you know, that's a fantastic idea.
Well, they are doing that. They have done it. They used to run it in October several years ago, or even when they were running the Safety Express in 1977 and 1978. And then the Safety Express had ran up into 81, and they were running into the New River Gorge with a steam locomotive. And the last one to run through there has just been, it was put into a museum in Clifton Forge. And the people that owned the engine, they went and they sold it, and the engine's being going to be towed up to Strasburg, Pennsylvania. Now, if you want to see something real nice with your wife and family, go to Lancaster, and right outside is where Strasburg is, and that is the oldest. That line is the oldest rail line running on its original deed. The original government order saying that they could lay the track. And yes, the Baltimore and Ohio was the first, but then Chessie, when they merged with the Western Maryland and the C&O, it became superfluous, so they have something else, and they gave up the right. So the Strasburg Railroad is the oldest, and it's still running, and it's steam powered. Now they do have diesel to help with switching some freight, but usually they have 2 steamers ready to go. And it's a wonderful place. The Pennsylvania State Railway Museum is right across the street, so you get a nice selection of cars and engines. And I guess we better get to some of our
let's
news.
get back to your agenda here. Sorry to
No.
derail you.
Oh, you did. Well, at least now you got something to ponder.
Right.
Okay. And bear with me. Gotta put my cheaters on. Okay,
And here's the news from
here's the news from across the nation.
across the nation. The railroad news from across the nation.
Yes.
Huntley and Brinkley report coming to you live.
Yes, I know who they are. Between that and Paul Harvey.
Walt Harvey.
And now for the rest of the story. Okay. Well, in fact, here it was. I was talking about Pennsylvania. And Gettysburg Excursion Railway. Passenger trains are going to resume on the tracks of the Patriot Rail's Gettysburg and Northern Railway after several years hiatus. Passenger service will be known as the Gettysburg Excursion Railway. It's expected to begin this spring, operating over 8 miles of former Reading Railroad branch between Gettysburg and Biglerville. Passengers will travel through a portion of the Gettysburg National Military Park en route, and the trains will depart from the historic era 1884 passenger station in Gettysburg, which was once a Buffalo, Rochester, Pittsburgh station located in Rockton. Work has been performed around the station, including upgrading platforms, benches, and lighting, and improved parking. Equipment will feature 8 former Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey cars, which will be overhauled prior to being placed into service. Trains will operate regular schedule runs, along with themed trains for Halloween and Christmas. For more information, visit GettysburgExcursion.com. This one makes me smile. American Freedom Train, T1, number 1. The B&O Museum is beginning its full cosmetic restoration of the American Freedom Train number 1, the former Reading Company 484 that had pulled the American train celebrating America's bicentennial. Expects to complete the work this year in time to mark for the nation's 250th birthday in 2026. The museum had announced plans restoration last fall when it moved the locomotive from its longtime display location in the Baltimore and Ohio Museum front parking lot of the facility's restoration shop. It's one of 3 locomotives that powered the Freedom Train on its tour of the nation in 75 and 1976. Number 1, originally Reading 2101, is the only one of the engines that remain in its Freedom Train livery. Damaged in a 1979 roundhouse fire in Silver Grove, Kentucky, and trust me, I cried, ended its operational career. It really did some damage to the boiler. But it became a parts engine for the 2100. AFT number 1 is actually the one that started the when it was going to its first stop in Delaware. And it brought the train into Chicago. And in fact, somebody sold me a picture, all framed, of a head-on view of number
Nice.
one. And the other engines are, one's in a museum in Texas, and the other is in Portland, Oregon.
Coast to coast.
Yep, coast to coast. And that engine's is painted back in its original paint scheme, and it is operational. And it's a nice engine. It's a nice oil burner. It's what they call a daylight locomotive. That was the big passenger train on the Southern Pacific locomotive. 484 wheel arrangement. On the back, this is a Reading T1. It's a 484 coal engine and burns anthracite. That's what Reading was known for.
It's got a clean exhaust and looks nice. I like that trim.
Oh yeah, this is its first winter run. The owner of the engine he actually owns the railroad that it runs on.
So while you're looking for that,
Here we go. That's the magazine
Oh, you got
I was
it?
looking for, yeah.
and I was going to mention just a couple of things about this background music that we're listening to, which is an album by the name of Steel Rails Under Thundering Skies. And apparently an enthusiast had recorded this several years back, and it's available for purchase from Daylight Sales, McClellan, California. Daylight Sales. And has a number of different steam engines rolling on the tracks.
And they give the name of the railroads that the engines came
Yeah,
from.
specific number of the engine and the line and where it was running. So, if somebody's interested, definitely check it out. Steel Rails Under Thundering Skies, which I'm sure you could find if you just search on the internet. You got your article there, Brian?
Well, yeah, I wanted to show you the picture because this is the gentleman who owns it.
Is running number 2102,
And
Andrew Muller Jr.
he's an entrepreneur. That's what he calls himself.
Uh-huh.
And he is not only the CEO of the Reading and Northern,
Uh-huh.
Reading, Blue Mountain, Northern. He literally owns all the track
Now that's
that he runs on.
that's a dedicated hobbyist.
That's why he calls himself an entrepreneur.
Oh boy.
And there's nobody underneath him that can tell him that he can't do that.
So he owns the rail line. Is that what they call it? The rail line?
Yeah, the rail
He
line.
owns the rail line. He owns the equipment, and looks like he's the
He's the honcho,
he's the head honcho of the Reading and Northern.
and he loves it. He's really.
Now, how do you get rights to something like that? That's got to be. I would think it would be expensive, but maybe not as expensive as you might think.
How much property do you get? That's all part of it and everything.
I mean, generally, you would think it would be just an easement for the rail line running through whatever property it's running through, and he's got lease rights or access rights to that rail line while it's there. He's got to maintain it, of course, but
Yeah, well, he maintains it, and yes, he can get a lease. But what it is, he goes after it, and he talks before the state, and they sign off on. Because what it is, they try to abandon some of the track.
right.
So he went and bought the track.
Oh. Well, I'm not sure what the specific regulations are regarding railroad property, but I would think that that has a pretty solid foundation going back since that was pretty much the means of developing the country back 100 years ago. Well, probably more like 150 now. And so, good for him that he's got the capability to do that. He's keeping, as I mentioned, I'm just thrilled to see these resurrected trains and tourist lines that are operating. I think that's a great thing to have, great legacy for this country. Although they do it in other countries as well. Europe seems to run a lot of tourist trains. There's a lot of luxury train travel with modern equipment.
In Japan, they had a lot of them. I was stationed in Japan for 3 years, and I got to see a lot of Japan.
By train.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The moves, of course, they are so much on top of that high-speed system, which, it's a shame, and I know we don't
Yeah, the Shinkansen. Yeah.
It's a shame we can't, it's not worth getting into right now, but I just don't understand why we have not developed a major network of spoke and hub high-speed rail to service the country. I guess we're just too stuck on automobiles.
Well, some of the people would be like that. California. All right, we're going to go talk California. Been there. Okay, they got a couple things that are nice, but they spent money saying, "Oh no, they're going to destroy the nature and stuff like that." Here they are.
Environmental impact.
Oh yeah, the environmental. Here you go. You got track that's going to be raised. It's going to be electric. And they're talking about the pollution that's going to happen and destroying the wildlife. I'm sitting there, they're going to be up. There's going to be openings for the wild animals to go through.
Yeah, they can just go through under the tracks.
It's going to be up, 30 feet?
No.
And, between 20 and 30 feet. And
now, these are the same people that are authorizing wind power mills everywhere, and those somehow are getting through, but when it comes to moving people on a high-speed rail, the environmental aspects just bring it to a halt. It just doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't want to get off track here.
Yeah, no. Well,
so did you get all the news in for today?
No, we got a couple more things. One involves me with the Operation Lifesaver.
All right.
Remember, I've talked a couple times and talking about, last month I was talking about what has happened since January, how there were too many deaths. Well, here we are in England, and coming up in Railways and Parliament. The second story is crossing fatalities. Brox-born MP, MP Lewis Cocking, asked the new Secretary of State of Transport, Heidi Alexander, how many people were hit by train across the railway in the last 12 months. And what steps is she taking to prevent such accidents? A couple of things wrong with that sentence. But, going on, Simon Lightwood, the Parliament Undersecretary of State for Local Transport, replied, according to the British Transportation Police data, from November 2023 to October 2024, 358 people have been struck by a train on the railway. Of these, sadly, 304 people lost their lives. 297 of those are suspected to have taken their own life by suicide.
Oh, well, yeah, that's a high percentage of the rail deaths.
Yes.
Pedestrian deaths are suicides.
Mm-hmm. And each rail operator is responsible for delivery. Now this is each rail operator is responsible for delivering a suicide prevention plan and maintaining accreditation to independently assess safeguarding on rail scheme. Their plan must include training of public face staff in suicide prevention, putting in place mitigation measures at stations, promoting avenues of help for vulnerable people at risk of suicide or self-harm. The industry works together using campaigns, education, physical barriers, training staff, working with charities to prevent these incidents. BTP works in collaboration with its partners to ensure all incidents are managed and swiftly, and people are treated with dignity. Network Rail has long-standing relationship with Samaritans and funds the Small Talk Saves Lives campaign. Since launching in 2017, the campaign has successfully raised awareness within stations and other public settings about the need to trust your instincts and start a simple conversation if you think someone might need help. And that's what we're trying to do here in Chicago.
Yeah, I was directly involved with that program through the Hinsdale Police Department. I was asked to produce a video on railroad crossing safety. Hinsdale, of course, is a very big commuter town. The Burlington Northern line, plus all the other trains that use that Burlington Northern line. There's three tracks there. A lot of high-speed trains going through town. A lot of freight trains going through town. And, you know, unfortunately, they regularly suffer from incidents with pedestrians, and many of them are suicide-related. But you know, it was interesting when I produced that, and you know, there's still a lot of people that don't follow the guidelines, and you know, as everyone probably knows, when the gates are down, you don't go on the tracks. Well, sure enough, as I'm filming, the gates went down for a train, and here's this lady running across the tracks, and I was able to capture it. And it illustrated the whole point of, you know, what are you doing running across the tracks after the gates are down? Now, you know, fortunately, the trains were not in the vicinity immediately, and she made it across without incident. But it was interesting experience as I'm filming to watch someone violate that particular rule.
Well, it's just like, believe it or not, you'd be surprised how many people use the tracks for shortcuts.
Right.
And us sitting up in the cab, coming around a corner, and all of a sudden there's somebody standing in the middle of the track or to the side, but not enough off the track. I mean, you got your track width, but then you got 3 more feet on each side of how big that engine is. And yes, I've seen people run in front of me. I've seen cars drive around the gates. A lot of us engineers, and unfortunately, they get clipped sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
One guy came in, and he was losing it. Pickup truck ran around the gate. He clipped it. Sitting in the back bed with the guy's 3 daughters. Yes, they perished.
Oh.
Oh, he was...
Pretty distraught, I'm sure.
He was... Yeah. Thankfully, our union really has a program for working with the guys. PTSD. So.
Jeez. Well, that's a grim side of
railroading.
but reality
Yeah.
side of the railroading business.
Well, remember Fox River Grove?
Remind me of that.
That's the one where the train was coming down at Crystal Lake, and he was going to go right through to Barrington. And a supervisor was driving the bus that day. The bus did not clear the track.
Oh.
And he actually took the body off the frame.
Jeez.
And there was 8 kids on board.
Oh, boy. Yeah, that's tragic.
But yeah, he passed. He retired about 4 years ago. His name was Ford Dodson.
Ford Dodson.
Yeah, 2-car.
Jeez.
But
Well,
in fact, you can read. Look up Brightline down in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful passenger service. A little bit high, a little bit fast, and unfortunately, people didn't want it, I guess. But they said it's got more suicides than any other rail line that I've heard of.
What else you got? What's the next on the list here? I don't want to dwell on that right now.
Okay. Well, anyway, I'm sorry. Yeah, but
no.
But trust me.
You got to report the news.
And it's nice to this is in another country, and I was watching the Smithsonian Channel, and every now and then they have the mighty trains.
Oh yeah.
And then you go around the world basically. He was riding a train that was he paid, I guess $1,400 to ride.
Wow. It's not a cheap ticket.
Yeah. But yeah, I like this stuff.
I was curious. I wanted to ask you before, with the tourist rail lines that you were talking about and referencing, is there a central web page or a central site that has connections to all the U.S. tourist trains, or a breakdown by location or geography or state?
Yes.
And do you know who runs that site or what that site title is?
There's the tourist guide. There's a book you can buy called.
There's a book. Okay.
A tourist guide.
Right.
And Kalmbach had published it. Several of them. And now that Kalmbach has been sold, and they packed everything up and moved to Chattanooga. Chattanooga, Tennessee, is where the new Kalmbach is.
You know, I was just playing the Glenn Miller song. Pardon me, boy. Is that the Chattanooga choo-choo?
There you
So
go.
that's a famous, and I don't know why it's such a famous rail town, but
it was essentially where Atlanta, Georgia, was the hub for the trains. They were the main terminal in the Civil War, and they stayed that way. But yeah, they connected with Chattanooga, and going up and made it into Richmond, Virginia, and such, and then finally got the connection to get into D.C. But yeah, besides, I think Glenn Miller was kind of tickled with it when he could play the song.
yeah, that wasn't a big hit. Actually,
I mean, yeah.
I think it was the first million-selling record. According to the details I got when I was looking in the background, it was the first million seller. So, you know, back then when there weren't that many people around, that was a big deal.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. And all them folk songs that you pick up along the way.
Well, yeah, and in fact, you know, if I could detour
Yeah.
to what my project was, I was recording a radio show, and we called it Coast to Coast. And basically, we were picking out songs that had a city or a state or a location in the name. And we played our way from New Hampshire through New York City, Georgia, down to Key Largo, back up Gainesville, over to Atlanta, Tupelo, Chattanooga, Cleveland, Detroit, Chicago, and from Chicago we took a detour on the city of New Orleans, the Arlo Guthrie song, written by Chicago and Steve Goodman, and it's such a great song. I love that song. Arlo Guthrie and Steve Goodman recorded it originally, and he did a good job with it. And of course, he wrote it. Arlo took it over and just, you know, gave it a real personality.
He made it his song.
Well, he made it not only his song, but I think it's the quintessential railroad passenger song. And you're listening to the Disappearing Railroad Blues, is lamenting the fact that, there just wasn't that many people on the train at that time, which was the late 70s. And I think, trains did take a downturn back then.
They had help.
I'm not sure what the history was. But anyway, that was the only two, the Chattanooga Choo Choo and the Ride in the City of New Orleans on the Illinois Central, I think it was.
Yeah, that's right.
And so those were our two railroad songs.
And there's another railroad song on that same line.
Oh, what is it?
Ballad of Casey Jones.
The Ballad of Casey Jones, son of a gun.
Vaughn, Mississippi.
I'll have to check that one out.
Oh yeah, Vaughn, Mississippi is where his accident happened.
Where do you know who recorded that one?
I know I got a recording of it. I got a tape.
That's all right.
With, yeah, there's a tape with the song in it, and it also has the actual fireman. He survived.
Looks like Johnny Cash was one of the more popular versions.
Johnny Cash. But yeah,
The wreck of the old 97.
I saw a picture of that too.
So if you're ever out there, pull up the old Johnny Cash number.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have to play that maybe next time.
Well, let's see what I can dig out with my album. hey, I even got a record of Hawaiian railroad songs.
Hawaiian railroad songs. The Hula Railroad?
It could be. No, they actually had a 3-foot gauge lines
Running the sugar plantations?
running the pineapple plantation.
Oh, the pineapple, right.
And also but like you say, yeah, the other
Sugar cane.
sugarcane and all. The Navy ran it also.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Military,
and running a lot of ammo trains and such.
Oh, yeah. Son of a gun.
Yeah, I found that. I said, you got to be kidding me.
I can't pass up that type of entertainment when I'm in Hawaii. You know, they got all
Yeah.
those tourist, if there's a DVD or a record album or something, I'm grabbing it for sure. What else we got on the agenda tonight?
That's about it. Oh yeah. I've been reading this series put out by Amazon.
Oh?
They're called Railroad Stories. And what they are, they're from the old Railroad Man magazine, which came out in the late teens and early 20s and actually basically went through to the 70s. And a lot of authors they write up stories and stuff like this. And each book has a different, subject. I just finished number 3 completely. Gangsters of the Rails.
Whoa.
About train robberies and such like that.
Uh-huh.
And then next was the Civil War. Now, they're not doing actual things. A lot of the stories are about bits and pieces from history. They're not trying to be a historic reference. And so yeah.
So you recommend the series called Railroad Stories.
Railroad Stories.
Available on Amazon, you said, right?
Yeah, Amazon. There are 14 books
Wow.
in the series, and you're looking at $17. And it's worth it.
There's a lot of entertainment in there, I'm sure.
But yeah, in this way you get the way the life is sometimes. But if you want to enjoy it more, get the General. You know which one I'm talking about.
The General, absolutely.
Oh yeah, not the Lionel. And I want to thank you for being here. And Sorry if I.
No. I appreciate your hospitality, and let me join you and rattle your schedule here by jumping back and forth and asking all these questions. But maybe it'd be a good time. When we got listeners out there, can you mention some of the things that would be of interest to railroad fans, particularly with the Chicago Junction show? And I know we share a lot of information on the Chicago Junction Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe you might plug in for.
Well, I am. We got one show coming up towards the end of the month. It'd be April 25th and 26th, Friday and a Saturday, and it's down in Silva, right on, near the river. The old Rock Island shop had been bought by some ardent rail fans, and they have several locomotives they are working on.
Mm-hmm.
It's toss up of a coin which gets done first. But they're going to be out there. They got a couple of diesels they run, and they'll be running back and forth about a mile. And it'll be real interesting. They've got passenger cars down there, a lot of bi-levels, Amtrak bi-levels that they bought. And I'm actually going to be there. I'll be having a table up there with Operation Lifesaver.
Well, excellent. So there's plenty of opportunities for rail enthusiasts to go out and visit other enthusiasts, demonstrations, museums. I know the Illinois Railway Museum is a pretty decent one. I've been there a few times. The kids love it. It's a chance to run around and check out equipment, something besides the video games. And
yeah, definitely. In fact, my wife says, "You've been listening to radio?" I said, "No, I wasn't listening." She says, "They're on there talking about IRM and some of the stuff they're doing out there."
Yeah.
And they didn't have any dates, so I went on the computer, looked up, and in June, on a Saturday, it's going to be Trains and Tunes.
Nice.
And it's not cartoons.
Right.
They're going to be doing an evening concert.
Nice.
And so we're going to be going to that.
That sounds like a great event.
Yeah, and it looks like they'll be running electrics that day.
Oh, nice. Well, look it up, folks. Thanks to the audience here, our loyal, dedicated audience. And I think, the one thing that's going to help us all is share the show link with your friends. Other people can listen. Certainly send us your questions through the Facebook page. Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network Facebook page. You can always ask a question there. We post the shows there, and there's the Chicago Junction, which is a private group, I understand, Facebook page. But if you're a rail enthusiast, you probably get in pretty easy on that group, and it's always fun. So I'm glad I had a chance to sit in, and hopefully I'll come up with some more stories for the future shows.
You awake, John?
Yeah, I'm waiting.
All right. Time to roll the old rail car out of the what do they call it? Garage? Not a garage.
Roundhouse.
The roundhouse. Yeah, time to roll it out of the roundhouse.
Take her to the tank, fill her up.
Fill her up. Take a snooze on the caboose.
Oh, yeah.
Well, wrap it up for us, Brian.
Ah, I want to thank you all for putting in. Please, if you have questions, do send them in. I will try to answer them. And I enjoy it. I know some of my friends are still listening in. And they're probably laughing their tush off.
There you go. All right, send us out, John.
Okay, you have been listening to Chicago Junction on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on Wednesday, April the 9th, the year 2025. Chicago Junction was produced and directed by John DeVita, and a special thanks to the associated executive producer of Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network, Mr. John Chicondo. This broadcast was pre-recorded on Wednesday, April the 9th, the year 2025. Until next month, please be safe and thanks for listening.